first time we played it through in its entirety, what surprised me was how much I missed Mike.
Yeah.
I had a short list of, there was a short list of people that we had. We had a short list of people that we had for the spoken word thing, and Jeremy was on top of my list, and I spoke to his agent, and the agent came back and said he'd love to do it tomorrow. Well, I was in the south of France, and so I said, just give me 5 minutes. And I called my travel agent, and I called another friend of mine at a studio as well. And I knew that Jeremy, his agent said, well, Jeremy's doing a book tomorrow, an audio book, you know, at this studio. So if you, let's do it there, you know, let's add it on. And so I said, great, and got a film crew together. And I'm so thrilled because he was invited to do it and he accepted immediately. And I think he's absolutely the right person. A beautiful voice and a beautiful looking man, I would say, as well.
Yes,
and,
he is.
And great for it, great for it. And it's a compliment to us, and I'm glad he's part of it.
Yeah, I saw when you posted that thing on your website that you, like you just described it. So what was it like directing him?
Well, when we arrived, Jeremy arrived. I was there with a film crew that just rustled together, but there was no director, and so I knew I'd have to do that. And Jeremy arrived on his motorcycle, which is a big British motorcycle, and all the girls, of course, were, oh, you know, because they were a little bit taken with him, because it just looked so great, you know, he had the leathers on and everything. And then when he came in, he looked at the part, and then we had just a brief chat, and I said to him, listen, I'm just a guitar player, so don't show me up here. And he said, no, right. I said, now when you do this bit, I want you to feel that you're, you know, now you're on the, you know, you're greeting the dawn and you're this kind of stuff. And he was like, yeah, quite. But he was totally into it. The one thing he didn't want to do was listen to any other version of it. And that day he deliberately didn't want to listen to any of mine. And I'd already, the night before, he'd asked me if I could do a tape of it to the spoken word of Graeme's things, so that he just, without any expression, which I did, yes. I was quite good at doing it with no expression.
So how many takes did it take him to nail it?
He did maybe, of each part, of each little section, you know, as Graeme knows, there's sections, and he did maybe 3 takes of each. The only thing I had to do was at the end, of each take, he would look up at me, because he wanted me next to the camera, and we're just enjoying ourselves, and so he would look up like that, and the cameraman said, he can't look up like that. So I said to Jeremy, you know what, if you can not look at me at the end of the camera, he said, I'm just looking, it's just like looking for mummy for approval, darling. So that's the story of that. But eventually, yes, we did it. And afterwards, a friend of mine in Italy, I'm sorry, Jeremy, I apologise for this, but afterwards was able to move his eyes, you know, digitally down in some places, because where he'd said it, where he had looked up at the end, was beautiful, the takes that we've got, and he said it with exactly the right feeling. So we were able to just digitally move his eye line just down a little bit, instead of looking at mummy. But he was great. He was quick, great, on it, loved it, enjoyed it, and did it his way. And it's great, isn't it, Graeme? I think we love it.
Yeah.
We love it. Yeah.
All right.
So that was the piece of the jigsaw, the last bit.
And then, so now, ready to take this to the stage. You learned...
Taking it on Broadway, baby.
Broadway, right. Oh shoot, that's what I meant to put down one of my questions. Thank you for reminding me. When it came now to divvying up the other Mike and Ray songs as to who would sing, John, what was the process there? Was it just, I'll do this, you do that, or?
Yeah, normally these things just sort of work out. They feel, the songs seem to fall into the right place. And, you know, Justin and I talked about it, what we should do. And what we did is in the show. It just seemed to work out really well. And I think the balance is right. And one of the biggest problems we had is everyone who listens to the album, we know at the end of the album, there's the gong. And we had to make sure we got that gong on stage and get it to be hit at the right time just to finish the album. Because at the very beginning of the album, we recorded the gong, the sound of the gong backwards. And at the end, we had it going the right way around. So I hope you appreciate that.
I think the other thing we did was that the three of us always agreed that that it worked better in a live situation with Late Lament becoming before on nights. And so that's what we did, we put it that way round. And so we took some of the orchestral parts, you know, and put them together afterwards, yes, and put them after nights, instead of before.
And then the imagery on stage is just tremendous. The photos of the three of you and Mike and Ray, and I am assuming that's Tony Clark is the sixth member in that. Personal archives, did you have to go through your old photo books and, you know, boxes and closets to find these photos? Where did they all come from, do you know?
I've got no idea, actually.
No idea.
Publicity agents, fans.
Okay, I didn't know if it was...
Mothers, fathers.
It's Mick, our lighting guy, and we put a lot of it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it looks
Mick
great.
Thornton, you know, always does a great job. Yeah.
It was great to see a lot of the photographs that, to be honest, we haven't seen before either. You know, all those really thin guys on stage.
And so highlights of the tour so far, no doubt the Hollywood Bowl and of course Toronto, which was filmed and it's been airing on PBS. Let's start with that Hollywood Bowl show because that was only a few dates into the tour. No stranger to playing with an orchestra, but how do you feel that all came off? Graeme?
Excellent. I've always thought the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra is one of the best, if not the best, in the country, because those guys are so informal. I mean, they've got formal dresses, but they're not snobs at all. I think it's because after the time they're going whoop whoop for cartoons and stuff like that. So, unlike the National, which were whoa. They had a smell up their nose. Those guys just made us feel so welcome and so comfortable, and they played so well that it made the whole thing easy for us.
Why not film that show? Is it just, I would imagine it quite expensive to do so there?
They wanted a fortune to film it there.
Yeah.
I think also
the Hollywood Bowl.
I think it was a good rehearsal for us, and I think we realised that actually that it probably wasn't the right. It was risky. It was better to do that dry run with them for 2 nights and then carry on.
And also, I think going up to Toronto is an indoor event.
Yeah.
And the indoor event does make it, you know, much better to record and much better to hopefully to get the sound exactly as we want it, you know. And we had 2 concerts there, so that worked really well.
Outdoor event.
That's it, we're done.
That's it.
And
Excuse me, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go.
That wasn't the guys in the jacuzzi, was it?
was there rehearsal with the Toronto, or is that just?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was, yeah. The great thing about Days of Future Past is that it's not like the Red Rocks things or the other orchestral things that we did with Larry Bear. In the Days of Future Past, we're not really playing at the same time. So that's why it works so well for us in this format that we're doing it now. So that and when it came to mixing it as well, it's much easier to do that because you haven't got drums all over their orchestral arrangements. That's the beauty of that piece of music. It's not like Red Rocks where you've got using the orchestra as an accompaniment to a band.
Right. I'm sure promoters are no doubt clamoring to have you do more orchestra shows. Is there anything in the planning stages for 2018?
Nobody's clamored on my own. Not yet.
Well, they did back when you did the Red Rocks one. I remember that was the case. Well, would you like to do any more shows with an orchestra for this album?
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be lovely because we've got the parts now.
Yeah.
We've got the parts. We've got the parts of the conductor. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And,
Is it them or us?
Yeah.
Is it us leaving? Okay.
I think we should all look over that way and wave bye-bye.
It's hard to tell, isn't it, when
Now that's our guys doing that.
What the hell?
All right.
It sounds like someone testing the stylus on a vinyl turntable.
Yeah.
So we've seen highlights on PBS during the December pledge drive. When's the DVD coming out? Will there be an audio component as well, separate?
Yes, it's all exactly the same. Yeah, I think the PBS version is out. Their DVD
Yes, I got mine.
they had the rights to it for like 3 months or something.
Right. So early this year, middle of the year, spring.
Yeah.
Late spring, early summer, we may see it.
I think springtime the DVD will be out, and then I think by April the vinyl version of the album will be out as well.
And the deluxe reissue had just recently come out for the original album, Days of Future Past. You must be very proud of that.
Yeah, yes, of course, yes.
You could have been
I was very
disappointed.
proud.
I don't know.
No, I'm not disappointed. I was curious that they said they found the original stereo master, because I thought we had that already, so I thought we'd already found that. But I'm not quite sure with record labels now, how much is, for how much is for real and what. But it sounds lovely.
It's best to keep it in the film wrap anyway.
Yeah.
Now that had been your stage show, and that's why you decided to record those songs. That's correct?
Most of them, yeah.
Most of them, yeah. Where did the title of the album come from, and the decision? I never heard this asked of you, and I'm sure it has been, but not by me. Past as opposed to past with a T. What was the decision behind that?
It's so curious being asked about things, that happened for an instant in your life, 50 odd years later, It's very difficult trying to recall moments. You mean, where did the title come from?
Yeah.
I thought it was curious that the film people denied that they'd ever heard of the album, when their film came out, but that's okay. Maybe it's just a phrase that has gone into the language. Because can open the Daily Mail and there's a piece in the women's section called Nights in White Satin, so it doesn't really mention the Moody Blues. Or just Moody Blues sometimes. I don't know where the title is. Graeme probably had something to do with it. You had something to do with it.
Yeah.
We had quite a discussion about past or passé, and we wanted to be the days of the future that we are passing through, as opposed to days of the future that is gone.
Yeah.
So that's why we had the ED spelling.
Very good.
We were stoned and we thought,
I think the interesting thing about making that album is that in those days you had 3-hour sessions in the studio, sort of 10 till 1, 2 till 5, and 6 till 9, and that's all you could ever get in the studio. But when we went to make the album, we said to Sir Edward Lewis, who was the chairman of the Decca Record Company, we'd like to have a lockout, in other words, being there 24 hours a day. And no one had ever done that before. And to our surprise, he said yes.
Cool.
And we went in there, and 7 days later, Days of Future Past was born. So.